Hey everybody, this is part 2 of how to port a chainsaw, and I'm going to show you cylinder defects, things to look at before you even bolt it onto your saw, just things to figure out with your porting, okay? Whether you're going to use a piston swap, I'll explain all this. Whether it's JB Weld in your intake. This is something I saw from John's Custom Saws. Now this is a MS660 cylinder. This was bad out of the box, but I fixed it. I'm going to show you how I fixed it. Okay, take your piston. This is one thing you definitely want to check. It'll judge whether your saw is going to run well. Okay, take your piston. Do it right when that intake port cracks. Okay, see that? Right when that intake port cracks, right about there. Okay, check that out. Your top ring is exposed, which means you'll have like a free flowing cylinder. This cylinder wouldn't have ran very good. Okay, makes sense. Now, how I fixed that could be some of the things that's going on with them MS660 big bore kits. Okay, that's why. Check your 660s. If your intake port's too big, now watch when I fix it, what happens when I put the JB Weld, put it right when it cracks. Right there, fixed. The bottom ring groove can be exposed as long as it's not your top one, as long as it's like, yeah. This saw would run very well, okay? It's one thing I noticed about that other MS660 when I did that, because it was like this. JB welded it, fixed it. Yeah, perfect. Okay, things to look for. Do that with any cylinder. Okay. See if I can get a drill bit here. Get an 1/8 inch bit. I'll show you checking the ring of death. Yeah, almost got it. There we go. Alright. Ring of death. Now I know this cylinder, this is that Duke cylinder, had problems. I fixed them all. How to calculate ring of death? You can use a drill bit, it'll get you close. This one's about an 1/8 inch. Okay. Set up for you. Bingo. Yep. There we go. We'll get you close. Okay. Don't move. In your exhaust port like such. See that? It's pretty close. It's pretty close. It's about an 1/8 inch. I checked it with calipers. It's about an 1/8 inch. I can't really show you on cameras. It's too hard to do on camera. Okay? So we know this is an 1/8 inch ring of death. Okay? Let's get the piston. If I can find it. There it is. There's the piston. Now we know this piston here, piston to come with the kit. Okay, so we know this is about in there, roughly about, we'll call that 125. It's about 127. It's 125. Okay. Now we know this cylinder had 20,000 squish. Okay. Which means 20,000 squish. This is 20 thousandths away from the ring groove, that ring of death. Okay, just picture this down in your cylinder. If this was dead flat down here with no squish, that ring would just touch it. Okay, but with 20,000 squish, it means it's 20 thousandths away from that. Okay. I wasn't very happy with that. So I had another piston here. This is a saw salvage piston, I noticed that this is a little taller. Okay, check that out. 140 thousandths. Okay, which means it's 15 thousandths taller. Okay, so if it's 20 thousandths squish, let's figure this out here. 25 minus 0.140, 15. So if you add 15 thousandths onto 20, it'd be 35, okay? 0.020 plus 0.015 equals, yeah, 35 thousandths. So that means that ring of death is 35 thousandths from hitting that ring. I'm a little happier with this, feel a little safer with this piston. Which means I could take a little more material off, drop that cylinder down. Say if I drop it 10, means I'd be at 25 thousandths before I touch that ring of death. Does that make sense? Okay. Now I'm going to show you the big defect I had with this the highway big bore cylinder. Why I could not use the standard piston. I had to use a 272 piston. Okay, I'm going to show you why. Let's turn this light on. Set up here. Get out of my light. A little bit bright. Anybody see that? See that bottom ring? Now let me turn it a little bit. That ring groove would be exposed. See? So if you take it down, yeah, see how that bottom ring pin would be exposed there? That ring would pop out, and guess what? Saw would be junk. Something to look at. Now watch what happens when I put a 272 piston in this thing. Cylinder off. So I sometimes, I don't know all the piston swaps, but that's why it's a good idea to know piston swaps. It'll help you fix a cylinder that's junk to something that's good. There we go. Alright, let's put this bad boy on. Check this at bottom dead center. And it's bottom dead center. Let me show you what happens. Okay. Okay, see that? Yep, it's fixed. See that? Ring's a little further away from that, so we won't have to worry about that ring popping out in that intake port. Okay. Now another problem I got with this, why I can't really run a flat top. I would love to run a flat top. I'm going to do a little pop up here. See that? That piston would be poking out of that exhaust port. It would be blocking some of my exhaust. So I have to cut a little, maybe a 20 thou pop up on this. Okay, be a little bit too tall. It's things to consider. Things to look at when you're thinking of doing port work to your saws. Well, do I have to do a pop up? Does it have to be a big pop up, small pop up? Okay, makes sense. Okay, let's see here. Another thing you want to look at, see if I can show you them. See them green marks? What that is, that's checking how wide this port is. Okay, it was a little wide out of the box there. Like on these 372s, you got to be careful you don't have it too wide, because your piston will free port on the side and your saw won't run well. You'll be like, hey, why do I got an air leak? I had that with my 1 cylinder. Right out of the box. Too wide. Okay. Intake's not bad. I know that's pretty close right on. That squish is sanded. I sanded that with a little mandrel I made. Piece of wood. Machined on the lathe. Cut a piece of sandpaper, put it in there. Just spin that on the drill with sand. You gotta check it. Be real careful when you do it. You gotta clean your cylinder, wipe this, clean this every time, check it. Just keep doing it. But you gotta be careful that you don't put too big of a step in there where your piston hits. See how it's starting to get that step up in there? Sanded 25 off, that's much as I'm doing. Okay? So that's just some things to look at there. Yes, like I said, it's a good idea to understand piston swaps. Now other saws, there's definitely piston swaps for other saws. Might have to experiment with stuff, but yeah, sometimes you can turn a crappy cylinder into a really good cylinder. Like my short blowdown cylinder. Transfers were all chipped. I thought, oh no, this thing's junk. Raised them way up there. It's probably like 106, was like 115. Then I took the base gasket out, dropped it to 116. A little better, but I thought, man, I'm not going to be able to cut a twig with it. And guess what? The thing runs really good. So, yeah. So I hope this was useful. Next video, I'm going to show you timing the saw. I'm going to show you, you know, with the numbers. You know what the numbers mean. We're going to show a little porting theory. I'm going to show, because it's a good idea to understand porting theory when you port a saw, because it'll make porting it a lot easier. So say, well, I know if I shrink my intake, I know this happens. Or if I have an exhaust port that's a little flatter, it'll give me a little more top end power. I'll explain all that. Okay guys, next time, keep feeling the heat.